Now we need to fix the way that our accounts aggregate across time, but before we do that, we need to do a little setup work. So under the database menu, you can access the edit database command, and here you may see an area called the account type mapping, and this might be completely empty, or you might see a list like you see here. And what we need to do is to set up the account type mapping so that each kind of account type is associated with an aggregation function. So for example, asset is typically set as a last non-empty. That means that whatever the last day is becomes the month value, and whatever the last month is becomes the quarter value, and the last quarter of the year becomes the year value. So it's just saying, how do we aggregate across time? It is used for semi-additive accounts where assets are point-in-time values. Balance would also be a point-in-time type of thing. So you can add in your own account types here, or give these different names if you like. But basically what we're going to do is to accept the values that are here, and then we're going to map the account types that are set up in our account dimension and correlate them to the built-in accounts that are listed here. So expenses will be set up as a sum, income, sum, liability is set up to last non-empty, and statistical is set up to last non-empty. Now let's go to our account dimension and set the wizard, add business intelligence. Here we will start it up and select the define account intelligence, and here's where it has some built-in attribute types, and we're going to map these to the types of attributes that we have in our dimension. Notice that we have a warning. A non-parent attribute has been specified as the account type. Well, that's because this is not the parent attribute. We're going to change this to accounts, and the error goes away. The account name, that corresponds to our account attribute. We don't have an account number. And then we have account type. And that just picks that up automatically because that was the last one available. Then we go next, and because we've got account type selected, it shows us this list of built-in account types that was available in our database editor. And now we're going to take the accounts that were found in the account dimension in the AdventureWorks database, and we're going to show it for assets, for example, which account type does that belong to. So asset makes sense. Balance, it automatically detected that that was balances. We have expenditures, so this would correspond to expense. Flow is flow. We have liabilities corresponds to liability. Revenue would correspond to income, and then statistical is the same. So we're just saying, what are the names that we have in our account, and how do those correspond to the built-in account types? The purpose for this, as we'll see in a moment, is that each account type is going to be associated with a particular aggregation function. So you can see that, for example, liabilities are set to last non-empty, balance is set to last non-empty, but our income and expenses are set to sum. And this controls the aggregation across time. The other thing we need to do is to go into our cube and change the measure amount so that the aggregate function knows to look at those settings. Right now it is set to sum, which is the default, but we need to change this to by account. And this will allow analysis services to check on an account-by-account basis in that account dimension what the proper aggregate function to use should be. Now let's deploy this. Now we'll go to the browser and reconnect to refresh it. And let's check what's happened to our values here. So we can see that the quarters are all listed here, but look at the total for the year is 31 million, which corresponds to quarter 4, whereas the total for the net income is actually 81 million, which is the sum of Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. And if we expand balance sheet, we'll see that This is true at each level. We have the assets and liabilities, January, February, and March. We see the total for Q1 only displays the March total. Same for the liabilities. But then when we look at the individual net income amounts, we can see that the total for the quarter actually adds up each of the 3 months. So all is good so far. But now we have another problem, and that is, for example, balance sheet is showing a total of 16 million for January of 2006 because it's adding the assets and liabilities together, which is incorrect. The assets and liabilities actually cancel each other out. So rather than showing a total, we don't add up assets and liabilities. We don't want to show a total there at all. Another issue that we have is operating profit and other income and taxes. These are things that are being calculated. If we look at gross margin, for example, and operating expenses, that's calculating the operating profit as 4 million, when in fact gross margin should be subtracting operating expenses, and so this operating profit should be lower. It should be something like 1.5 million instead of 4 million. So there's another issue with this parent-child hierarchy that we're going to need to fix next.